Hey, what's up, peeps? It's me again. I haven't uploaded in a few days. Actually, I uploaded a video yesterday, but it was really just one I'd made a few days before that was I forgot to list. Uh, so I've actually been sick for a few days, and it got me thinking about how important it is that we advocate for our own health. I'm not going to come on and make a video about COVID and ooh, I had COVID. I have no idea. It seems like it was. The symptoms were all there, but I can't say for sure that's what it was. All I had available were these stupid at-home tests, which aren't very accurate anyway, and who knows if you catch it at the right time. A lot of people say it doesn't matter, the tests don't matter, they're all fake or they're all false. It doesn't matter to me really at this point. After dealing with this crap for 2 years, I'm pretty much over it. But it had all the symptoms of the Omicron variant, which is really funny because I had just talked about that like right before I got it, and we had company on Christmas Eve, and she had the sniffles. It was my son's girlfriend, and she figured it was allergies. We weren't sure. And then 3 days later, like clockwork, I woke up in the morning at like 3 in the morning with the dry cough, and I was like, all right. I had a tickle in the back of my throat the night before, and I know as you get older, you learn those symptoms. You know when you just don't feel quite right. So instantly, I started taking my usual supplements that I'll take at that time. And so I woke up with the dry cough. Then I took some of my usual things, which would be the mushroom blends. I put it in my coffee, a heavy dose of like chaga and cordyceps, and then a couple of the vitamin D capsules. Yeah, there's no real cough or phlegm left. I mean, I once in a while have a little cough. But the funny thing was, the first day it was gone, and so it was pretty much a 1 day thing. And then next day was kind of recovery. That was yesterday. Today I woke up feeling a-okay. So I guess it was more of a 2 day thing for me. And the funny thing is, I never went in to get properly tested for it, but I have two friends who are suffering the same thing right now, and they actually both tested positive. So I was like, hey guys, it's a relief for you. Hey, at least you have natural immunity now for some time. But, over the past couple of years, we've had to become our own health advocates. I know there are still people who want to believe that those in charge, the health experts and the policymakers really have people's health as their central priority. I don't know how people can actually believe that, because if that were true, then we'd be doing a hell of a lot more to help those in our country who have problems. We wouldn't be raising insulin prices to the point where people can't even afford them, or making cancer medications bankrupt people for a month of treatment. This is exactly what happens all the time. You have to advocate for your own health. And one thing that's been lacking during this whole pandemic has been any type of a response regarding here's what you can do to take care of your health, right? And these are the preventative measures that you can take at home to ensure that if you do get infected, that you can minimize your problems. There has been none of that in the media that I've seen. And I've watched and I've looked and I said, wow, I'm just consistently shocked that they have not even at this point brought up something as simple as vitamin D. So a lot of us knew really nothing about vitamin D 2 years ago. And we've had to do our own research to say, is this just some BS, crap to convince people to take something else? What we have to do is step away from everything politically. Stop looking at this as a political idea. Some drugs you can't even mention the name of anymore without people going apeshit over it. If we step back for a minute and just look at these things critically, vitamin D is an amazing tool. And I wasn't even aware it's not. Technically, it shouldn't be classified as a vitamin. But vitamin D is produced by sunlight hitting your skin for the most part. Now, this gets into really interesting territory if you dig deep as to why certain Africans that live at northern latitudes have more of an issue with COVID. That it might not just be a wealth disparity or a vaccine disparity, but rather an issue with how they produce their melanin in their skin and how they produce vitamin D in their bodies. Supplementation has been shown to be an amazing tool to help people with illnesses through the past. So the thing I learned about vitamin D is you can't just get it from like the morning or the evening sun. It's only when the sun, as they say, is 45 degrees or above higher in the sky. It's during the summer months and midday when it hits your skin. And this is why white skinned and light skinned people have lighter skin because they absorb more. They need to absorb more in order to produce vitamin D, and we've depended on that generationally for, millennia, but now we move around so much that there's different cultures in different places, and we can't get a good grasp on, what it is about, COVID that makes it so bad for certain people. And vitamin D is turning out to be a major component to this, that to the point where it should be talked about a lot more. Now, it's traditionally been known that it helps manage bone and calcium homeostasis, I guess. And it has to do with bone density and calcium uptake into the bones, and I believe phosphorus as well, if I'm not mistaken. Like I say, I'm not a doctor. I just read about these things from doctors and try to confirm them as best I can. But there's a couple other things that are much less mentioned. One of them is that it actually can regulate blood clots. And that's a huge issue with not COVID, just COVID, but the shots themselves as well. We know that blood clots are a problem. Therefore, vitamin D at the very least can help regulate these things. And it regulates your body, and it basically assists your immune system as an immunomodulator. It helps your cells regulate, I believe, at the ACE2 receptor. It helps, which is the receptor where COVID gets in. I would urge people to just look at the studies themselves. Don't take my word for it. I'm just a hippie dude sitting here telling you some shit. But definitely ask yourself why we get colds in the winter. I've just been through a 2-day cold in the winter, as usual, where all the colds seem to happen. Have we ever stopped to ask ourselves why this happens? In the past, people said, you'll catch yourself a cold. It's called a cold for a reason. They believed if you go out in the cold, you can catch a cold. But the lowering of the immune system because it's a little cold out, that doesn't necessarily account for why viruses attack us more. It has to do with the fact that vitamin D levels are lower in the winter. I believe that that's a major factor in it. And if you look at some of the studies in Sweden as to why a huge population of their Somali immigrants actually got COVID, it turns out that it might have to do with the fact that they're at a further north latitude and they can't produce as much vitamin D as they could back in their original homeland. It's pretty wild study, and I think that this is being forced because of this issue. Worldwide, doctors are looking at it. So, at the very least, know this. There was an accident at one time where a dairy, apparently a decade ago or two, was putting in like 500 times the recommended daily allowance of 500 times more vitamin D than they were supposed to. And this went on for like a couple of years, and nobody noticed until somebody who was very susceptible went in and got checked, and the rest is history. But the point being that taking a few extra doesn't seem to be an issue. I believe it's fat soluble, and therefore people who have more fat cells may retain it longer. I don't know anything about this aspect of it, but I was taking like 2 twice a day, which is more than enough, I think. It's like 5,000 units per dose or something. The question isn't whether it actually stops or prevents you from getting sick or even assists in getting better faster. But the question is, why wouldn't you? And there are a lot of folks who won't take preventative measures because of political reasons. And of course, I'm talking about the ones from the last presidential era that everyone was talking about. I have no interest in taking those either. I'm sure they have their own benefits and risks. I choose what works for me. But when people kind of talk about alternative cures, vitamin D is not an alternative cure. Vitamin D is a well-known supplement that's been taken for a long time. But it doesn't have much of a profit to be made off of it. And this is why everybody wants to sell you the $700 pharmaceuticals, like the Molnupiravir or the Merck drugs, Oh, wait till these pills come out. They're going to be a game changer. And you'll hear this repeated over and over. It's like, but why would we need those if we can simply take something that we know can be just as effective, that has been used for a lot longer on other viruses and other things? So I think that it's frustrating that everyone shuts down when real science comes up. And, like, for example, I heard about it. There was a doctor who I came across him making a video earlier, Dr. Zog or Z-Dog or whatever, I don't know who he is, making a video talking crap about this other doctor who was on Joe Rogan. And somebody pointed out in the comments, well, the doctor you're disputing here had come with 40 separate scientific papers that were written in republished in or published in respected medical journals. And meanwhile, he comes back with a 1 hour rebuttal where he doesn't hold up a single piece of paper or recite a single bit of fact. This is the problem we have now. The doctors have had the same attitudes as the politicians always have. Do as I say. I know what's best because I'm an expert at this. You don't know what you need. And like I say, you got to be your own health advocate. People will tell you that you're foolish and that you should heed the advice. And sure, sometimes you should, but you really have to look for yourself. I think that's important. Because when we're ignoring health measures like exercise and leaving out discussions about weight and race and culture and gender and pregnancy and whether certain things affect us more, if we're predisposed to certain conditions, if certain conflicts of interest through different, vitamins or different medicines for different people, everyone's thrown under the same bus of just get it and shut up. And I think that people, because I'm just learning too. We're all just learning here. And it's important not to be ignorant, to be very, very vigilant right now and realize that it's nothing new under the sun. Generally, never let a good crisis go to waste. It's always about profits. This is why basic things like zinc and vitamin D, which have been well known to help with colds, are just being completely ignored right now. Not even being suggested as a just in case, It's been 2 years. And, I think most people are wanting to get on with it and have got on with it a long time ago. But what I mean is want society to get on track to realize that there are other options out there and that things like we don't have to be divided over preventative measures. There are things that we've used through history with all other types of illnesses. But I think vitamin D is a crucial one and it's very important. And I think that we should all look into it, I guess, if we haven't already. Let's see, what else do I have? There's something else I wanted to mention. I guess it doesn't matter. The main focus I wanted to have here was vitamin D. I mean, I take other things. Chaga mushrooms actually have NCBI, like health journal articles that will show you the abstract and the research and the conclusions of research with different medicinal compounds from mushrooms, from chaga, or from cordyceps, where they're immunomodulators, that they actually help with some of the same, like I said, the ACE2 receptors, and they benefit the body in ways that as a non-scientist, as a non-doctor, I can't sit here and articulate properly. And I think that that's what most of us are frustrated with. We hear all these studies and we can put them together in our heads, but we just can't quite articulate and remember every detail. But being suspicious is a natural reaction to the way that health is being promoted right now. And like I said, to think that those in charge really give a shit about your health is going to be to your own detriment, if that's really your intention. We're being basically, as always, just treated like ignorant fools. So don't be one, look into these things. Vitamin D in the elderly is important too. There's something to be said about vitamin D deficiencies in elderly populations. And I heard a couple studies where they'd done one study, and I didn't want to recite this because I have to find the article. My wife had told me about it after I had already seen it too. So I've seen it at least twice, that there was a study done on post-mortem, COVID patients or people who died from COVID complications, and found that all of them, like in the high 90 percentile, were vitamin D deficient. So taking a simple precaution, might as well. Anyway, I feel a hell of a lot better. I'm not going to attribute it to anything in particular, but I'm not going to be gaslit by anyone, especially coerced by anyone to convince me that there's a certain way to take care of my health, because I do not believe the pharmaceutical industry has ever had my health as their interest, and anyone who does needs a head check. I'll talk to you next time.